The test is green, but the application fails. If you're testing Postgres with H2 in-memory database, your test might be lying to you. This query works perfectly fine in Postgres, but in H2, it can't run. And even worse, sometimes H2 let your test passes while production fails. So in this video, we'll be using Testcontainers to spin up a real Postgres database and test native queries the right way. I've created a simple project just to demonstrate the problems that we have regarding the Postgres native queries. It's just two controllers called repository directly, and those are the two queries that we have. If you notice, we have this add greater than, which is basically mean it contains something. So this is a native query for Postgres, and we want to test this kind of behavior. But when you try to test this behavior, this annotation, which is native query for Postgres, it will fail. And this is an example of how it would be failing. We're creating a connection. This connection is based on H2 in-memory database, and we're making the mode is PostgreSQL to act like it's kind of Postgres. Right now, we're executing this statement, which is basically selected all from product, and we're using this native Postgres annotation. If we run this unit test right now, you will find that this asserts on an exception that gets thrown. This is an exception that happened. Why? And let me show you how exactly. I'm now going to be debugging this part. This execution of this statement will result in an exception, and I want to show the error that's going to be appearing. I'm going to be stepping over, and it will tell you this is the throwable exception that we have. This is the exception. We have a syntax error in the SQL, and this is due to the fact that we have this annotation, or basically this add greater than. This has happened because we're using an H2 in-memory database, which is the connection that we have right now. This is not right for testing purposes. Why? Because we're using a native symbol for Postgres. A better approach in order to have mimic of production environment is to use something called test containers. Test containers let you spin up a container that match your requirements. So for example, we're using Postgres here, we're using the Postgres query, native query, and we want to test it out. So why not we spin a container having this Postgres image so we can mimic this kind of behavior? And this is what we're going to be doing here. So here we have a PostgreSQL container, and we have this image, which is going to be version 16 Alpine, and we're adding some kind of values regarding the connection and username and password. Also, we're creating a drop. By the way, in order to use test container here, you need to use Docker. You can't really have test container without Docker. You must install it somehow. If you're using Linux, then you need to have Docker setup ready. If you're using Windows, you need Docker desktop. So I'm using Windows. I have Docker desktop here, and I want to show you what happens when we run this unit test. Just for the sake of explanation, we're setting up some kind of data here. And we're asserting that we have two tests regarding the queries that we have, which is basically find text containing all and find attributes containing all. And then we're asserting some kind of value, which is basically this product exists with the name of Spring Boot integration testing. So that's basically what we do. And let me show you what happens when we run this unit test. So here we have our containers, and currently it's empty. There is nothing, but it builds up. It creates a test container, and then it creates a container for this Postgres. And if you check back to the integration test, you will find out the two tests had passed. So this means that basically it created a container. This container was Postgres container, and it executed those two tests through this container. And then after completing this test, what happened is it removed the test container, or basically the containers that we had created. And this is the idea about test container. You wouldn't really want containers just in your image. You wouldn't really want containers in your Docker just holding space for no reason. So after finishing this test, it basically ends them and destroys the containers. That's basically how you test using test container with mimic of a real production Postgres database. That's the idea. Hopefully you enjoyed the content so far, and see you next time.